There we go. Okay, I think we're finally live. Casey, I'm going to bring your volume down, and then I'll bring you back in just a second.
All right.
We'll get this thing rolling. Maybe we can actually actually do this without a train wreck occurring. Give me just a second. All right, folks, here we go. It's been a night. It's Friday. I've had 2 vacation days in a row, and I'm doing dumb stuff, so I apologize right off the top of the bat. Nope. Nope. That's the right one. I shall hit record, and then we shall start. All right, folks, and we are back with another edition of the Missouri Liberty Reports. Thanks so much for joining me once again. I hope that I can speak correctly because this evening has not started out well. I took a nice nap, so I should be ready to go, but OBS and Discord mixed together I could not bring Casey's audio through the board back into OBS, so we had to scrap that and go to phone. And with me tonight, I have Casey Pemberton, who is running for Missouri House of Representatives, and I'll let you tell him the district. And we will discuss his campaign a little bit tonight, but we really want to go into some detail because Casey is a legislative assistant. So Casey's going to be able to give us a little bit more information on the last legislative session that just ended here a couple weeks ago, and we're just going to discuss what happened and and his campaign as well, because we want to know how things are going and any updates that he has. So, Mr. Pemberton, how are you this evening, sir?
Doing great.
Awesome.
Especially now that we're not we're not in session anymore, so that feels great.
I bet it does.
I'm running for House District 58. Just to go ahead and get that out there. I right off the bat, I'll tell you, I probably don't know much more than everybody else. I've just got to see all the craziness as it was happening in person.
Well,
and it was crazy.
Well, like we've been talking about in the live stream, a lot of the legislative session was taken up by the redistricting. That kind of screwed everything up. They spent so much time on redistricting that we lost valuable time getting anything productive really done. And in the end, the map that they didn't want apparently got approved, the 6-2 map. It went through anyway. So all that fighting for absolutely nothing. Am I right? Did it? Because they wanted 7-1, and then it ended up with 6-2. Is that right?
So it's a mix. Of course, you had your more hardline on the Republican side wanted a 7-1. Then you had, and they were arguing that if you got a 6-2, you would really end up with a 5-3 map here in a few years. Because there would be a shift to blue. Then you had some Democrats who were arguing that they would like a 5-3. You didn't have a lot of them. You had your more moderates on both sides, and just a good chunk of people on both sides saying, look, 6-2 is probably the best we can do. And that's what they ended up going with. A particular issue I was worried about was keeping the two bases together, because for a very long time now, Leonard Wood and Whiteman have been in the same district before, and that has given us a seat on the House Armed Services Committee in federal. And I was a little concerned that if we moved the two out of the same district, we would lose that seat.
Understood. Okay. Go ahead.
That's the gist of it. Thankfully, we have them both together. I think we're going to keep that seat. It's now just a question of who's the new representative from the fourth.
Right. Because let's face it, DC is a complete train wreck, and nothing productive, nothing good has come out. Now, with what we're seeing after the horrible events in Texas, let's all now. Some people are going to take this the wrong way, and I don't care. Thank God we have SEPA in the state of Missouri.
Yeah,
Because if they choose to write new legislation that violates the Second Amendment, Missouri just gets to give them the one finger salute and go, sorry, that doesn't apply here. So this is not me saying, for those people out there who might listen in and go, oh, he doesn't care about kids. Au contraire. What I'm saying is, I do not like the feds using this to politicize an event to push further gun control. I am thankful that the state of Missouri has the Second Amendment Preservation Act and that we have protections against when events like these occur. This is someone swinging open a big door saying, hey, feds, come on in and enact more gun control laws, which does nothing to protect the kids. This is kind of a topic, Casey, that I'd like to get into with you because you are running for state rep, and so let's discuss this issue because it's going to be a hot topic for a while.
yeah,
And we have people on both sides of the aisle. This is what kills me. Okay, some people on the side of not wanting more gun control make good points, but every time there's a shooting, to me, there's a lot of meaningless banter between the left and the right. Here's my opinion. Take it as you may, because some people don't want. People feel that schools are like prisons for kids anyway. To me, this is my opinion right now. Now, it may change. But in my opinion, if we want to do something, and I stated my case on social media for whatever reason, I decided to just blurt it out there. But if we, as much money as the feds spend on schools, as much money as our state and our federal government doles out to schools, you can't tell me they couldn't hire armed security or train people to be in these schools to protect the kids against an armed, an active shooter. To sit here and say, well, we'd rather just take your gun rights away. So to me, when they do that, it's not about protecting kids. It's a way to politicize an event to get things that they've always wanted or have wanted for a very long time. So, and Jonathan Ashley makes a good point. If someone has evil in their heart and mind, no law will, assuage that evil. You can't take the evil out of a person by creating a new gun law or a law against anything. It just.
I agree totally.
What's your opinion on this?
I have a unique side on this. I grew up going to school in the generation of school shootings. They were a yearly occurrence all throughout my high school. Not at my school, but they were happening all throughout my high school. And we had, the gun grabbers especially, but everyone talks about, well, the kids are having to have these conversations now about what to do if there's a school. Yeah, that was my school. We had these conversations. We had a bomb threat at my school at one point. The teachers I felt the most secure with were the ones who I was fairly certain maybe not listening to the law entirely, because they had decided that it's better to them to get fired and have protected themselves and the kids in their class than to have sat back and taken that chance of not being able to protect people. I do believe we probably have teachers who carry in general in the state. They're very very concealed about it, which is how I think it should be. My problem with having an armed guard going around, that's the first target.
It
You're going on a shooting spree. You have an armed guard sitting there. That's my first target. And that sounded bad. That's someone's first target if they're going on a shooting spree. They're taking out that threat, and they're going to probably know that they can get more weapons from that. My thought would be concealed gun. You let teachers volunteer. You can even hire a guard or something, but whoever you hire, you don't know. No one knows except for the principal and the teachers who's carrying.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm okay with anything that doesn't, again, in the liberty mind, we have to look at this issue as painful as it is to see what happens to these kids in these schools. This is still an issue where we have to look at it and say, how do we solve this with more freedom and not less? Now, here's a suggestion that maybe parents ought to think about. If you don't feel like your kids are safe in schools anymore because they are government funded, maybe this is another reason to homeschool your kid. Now, that sounds callous, but you cannot expect government, for the most part, to have a response that's logical to this issue. They're going to go 150% in the wrong direction, and that is taking law-abiding citizens, law-abiding gun owners' rights away or certain guns away in order to make it look like they're solving an issue, when in actuality they're not. Because, like Biden, if Biden had kids that were in school right now, there'd be armed detail all over that school. So where these big highfalutin politicians go, their kids are well protected. Why are their kids any more important than our kids? Ask yourselves that. They're not. Just because
Agreed.
they're the child of a senator or a house, a representative or a president or vice president does not make their kids any more, important than your kids. So
I think there's a song about that, but it has to do with the draft and not with school.
Oh yeah, what's that? Fortunate
Son.
Yeah, Fortunate Son. Yeah, but it is. Now I was watching a very short clip with Colion Noor, who he's with the NRA, and he was on what's the dude on Fox? Tucker Carlson the other night. He was talking about this. He made that statement. Biden. If Biden had kids in school, there'd be armed security everywhere to make sure nobody got to his kid. Ask yourself. Now, and some people are like, well, he's the president. Who cares? All kids, they love to banter about everybody's equal. Fine, treat all the kids equally. Make sure they stay safe. But again, because this issue is so easily politicized and so many people, and it causes a lot of infighting, so you don't actually see what's going on behind the scenes, they don't have a good ideas in place to make schools safer. No, they want to argue that, we should take more people's guns away, or we should make it harder to purchase a firearm. It does nothing to solve the problem. This is why when people say, well, we need government to do something, here's one of these issues that you can bring up and say, okay, we've had all these school shootings. What have they done about it? Nothing.
Yeah.
They just fight.
So, it's been my thought for a long time. You mentioned homeschooling. Also, I'll use I'm a member of the Southern Baptist Convention. In my county alone, there's probably 20 to 30 Southern Baptist churches. We're Baptist country in our area.
Yes, we are.
There's no reason that I can think of. The Lutheran churches in Cole County were able to team up and become a part and open up schooling all the way K to 12. I see no reason why when we have as many Baptist churches as we do, they couldn't work together to open up schools. And it's not just Baptist church, it's not just churches, liberty groups. There's no reason why groups shouldn't work together to be able to put up together schooling for their kids. May if we can start it, if we can start this kind of a revolution with the people, maybe it can spread. Again, maybe you don't think you can homeschool, that's fine. But what if 4, 5, 6 people got together and started a co-op? Families got together and started a co-op. You don't have to be the only teacher. You teach something you're good at. Shop, math, reading, whatever. And someone else can teach on a different day. Just a little bit of rant there, but it doesn't have to be every man's an island. There's a good amount of group working together that we can do, and we need to do if we're going to spread liberty anyway.
Well, and you make a good when you say you don't want no man's an island. In these times right now that we're living in, whether you're talking about school shootings or what's going on with the inflation and all and shortages and all these different things, no matter the subject, the times we're living in right now is not a time to isolate yourself from everyone. We need to be at a point where we are finding like-minded people that we know we can depend on in rough times and work together with. Now, that, I know there's groups of parents who have found someone who's, let's say they're a retired teacher. Each family pays that person so much a week, and this individual, this retired teacher, will homeschool the kids.
Yeah.
Instances like that, examples like that, but we can't expect government to have a good outcome in this situation. So again, if you're a liberty-minded individual, if your goal is liberty and freedom, you can't expect government to have a good response. We have to make do. We have to, play the hand we're dealt with, however, whatever analogy you want to use, but we have to do something instead of waiting on the government to fix it. It's not going to happen. Now, is Missouri, are teachers in Missouri allowed to conceal carry right now? Because I know they had been looking at a law, but I don't remember if.
I think it's county by county or district by district.
Okay.
Because I am fairly certain. Let me double check. I'm fairly certain an area around ours is allowing their teachers to carry.
Again, no issue. I've heard examples. I've had somebody say, well, I don't want teachers carrying because if a kid finds out and they wrestle the gun away from the teacher, and I'm like, well,
actually, as of 2 days ago, 24 school districts in Missouri designate teachers can carry firearms.
Here's something else. I mean, honestly, it sounds stupid to some people, but I think it's a start. I think schools should just start posting that they have armed, people on the premises. The shooter doesn't absolutely know if that's true or false, but it makes them take pause. If they believe that there's an armed faculty, guess what? It's the case in in pretty much any mass shooting. People go to where there's no one is armed. No, they don't talk about this. They just say, well, we need to make sure it's harder to get guns. The saying, an armed population is a civilized population. An armed society is a polite society. We talk about, well, we don't want the schools to become war zones. Well, then make it a polite society. Have teachers or faculty be able to be armed to put down a threat if they're so willing to do so. Why are we sitting here? Again, of course, because the government has an agenda. there are ways around this. Now, is it perfect? No, absolutely. There's no perfect fix for this. But good golly, can you at least take some steps here? Can we at least acknowledge that what we're doing right now isn't solving anything, and waiting for government to fix it isn't solving anything? Now, I want to get to something here, because Gary has said, how many 3-letter agencies were involved in the Texas school shooting? Answer: all of them. Here's something else that they don't discuss, and people don't like this, but I don't care. So, well, not all. Some people don't like it. When you talk about the mental health of the people that do this, how many have we seen that have been on psychotropic drugs? Sometimes a psychotropic drug that someone's taking makes them worse instead of better, makes whatever they're going through intensify, gives them that homicidal or suicidal rage. We don't talk about that. Why don't we talk about that? Why don't we take, government, I keep saying we. Government takes a one-position approach to this situation. Get the guns out of the hands of people. Whenever there's an issue and government gets involved, they don't ever take a deep dive. What are all the variables that came, that were involved in this situation? He had a gun and he killed people. That's it. That's literally it. He had a gun and he killed people.
Well, and this speaks on something that I've been talking about my entire time here running. We passed PDMP in 2021. I say we, the legislature did. But they made it so you can't, statutorily, it can't be used to take your guns. Well, all that takes is a simple rewrite of the statute.
Exactly.
And if ever there's a time when they're going to go after that, it'll probably be after a school shooting or a mass event like such, because it's going to become, mental health played a role in this, so therefore anyone who's on these kind of drugs can't have guns. And we have this list, so let's go ahead and figure out who's on them so we can get their guns.
Yes, you're right there too. Something else that I want to discuss here, because we're on the topic, and I didn't mean it. It popped in my brain, and now I'm going through all these details. So I apologize, Casey. I know this wasn't the full intent of the interview, but now that I'm on a roll here. Here's something else that I think greatly affects kids in school, because I talk to my kids about this, the anti-bullying thing that goes on in schools. Again, some people don't like this, don't care. When I was in school and someone was bullying others, eventually someone got tired of it and knocked the snot out of them. It wasn't go talk to a counselor and blah, blah, blah. To me, all it does is anger the bully more. It makes them want to bully more. Yeah, is violence the only solution? No, it's not. But sometimes someone needs an attitude adjustment. And if it means getting your butt kicked in school, then so be it. But, things kind of calm down after there's a little correction in attitude. It doesn't keep flaring up, and these kids get bullied to a point where they think, all right, well, I'm just going to take some people with me.
Our school resource officer, whenever I was in school, essentially had a rule. If things get pushed, let them hit you twice. After that, I didn't see anything. After that, it was self-defense. It wasn't an accident because they came in a second time, and I saw nothing.
I told my kids I do not ever want them throwing the first punch. But if somebody throws the first punch and someone's attacking them, then I expect them to stand up for themselves and to defend themselves, and if all possible, knock the snot out of the other one. I did not want my kids to grow up thinking they had to come home and tell me so I could call the parents and go, because that solves nothing. To me, that solves absolutely nothing. I told them Now, again, I said, if you start a fight over something stupid and you come home to me and I find out, then you and I are going to fight, and that's the one you're going to lose. But I did not want them cowering down and just running to the principal if someone hit them. But that's the mentality they want kids to have. They want them to just run to the counselor, and the counselor's going to drag that kid, the bully, into the office and say, you really shouldn't do that. The bully doesn't care. They got the response that they wanted.
And I think one issue, so on this, the zero tolerance issue has been one thing I'm not the biggest fan of. Because you end up with the kid who the bully was picking on also getting punished. We have a zero tolerance on fighting. And so he hit you and you hit back. That's fighting. You're both in trouble.
Right.
Or even some schools have gone to some spots have gone to a point in general of, well, you may have provoked them to hit you. So that could be fighting. And, that's ridiculous. If the kid gets hit and they fight back, right on, that's good on them. I get that you may have to do a finger wag and say, hey, no fighting, but they shouldn't get punished. Like I said, you may want to do a finger wag. That's about all you need to do.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell this story for people that haven't heard it before. So when my son was in kindergarten and first grade, I can't remember which one. So it was cold and rainy outside, so he and a couple of his friends were playing inside, and they were pretending to be U.S. soldiers, going after suicide bombers, and a teacher was passing by, heard one of them say suicide. So she goes to the counselor. The counselor drags these three boys in the office and says, well, we shouldn't use the word suicide and all this. So we get notes sent home with us. My wife calls the mom of one of the other kids to kind of dig into what happened. So the next day I called the counselor. And I said, what's this coming from? And she's like, well, this is from the School Safe Act. And I said, well, what's the School Safe Act? She kind of gave me a roundabout answer, and it's like, you don't even know really what it is. But she said, if we deem that a child makes a credible threat, then we will call law enforcement, then we'll call the parents. And I'm thinking, you do that, you're going to be calling law enforcement back on me because I'm going to be coming unglued. And she's like, your son's only so many years old. We know he's not going to threaten to kill anybody, blah, 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 and on and on and on. And we got to the end of the conversation, and she said, well, do you have any concerns? And I said, yeah, I do. I have a concern. I said, it concerns me that my 6-year-old son can't play inside school with a couple other boys and say a word that a teacher has an emotional response to, and you have to drag 3 kids into an office about something they were playing and have a conversation with them. I said, this is retarded, and I slammed the phone down. It's just like, dude, what is wrong with you? And then again, later on, he was in middle school. And so the kids used to do this goofy thing. They call them 5-starring. So they'd come up and slap each other in the back as hard as they could and try to leave 5 fingerprints on their, 5 marks on their back from their fingers, okay? So a girl was getting involved in it, and my son's like, you can't hit a girl. So they're just slapping each other, and she would get involved, and they're like, hey, please stop doing that. And they said, okay, we'll just go talk to the counselor about it. Well, they go in and talk to the counselor, and the counselor is pretty much like, stop being big babies and just, go back to class or whatever. Now, that ticked me off immensely. I told my wife and I told my son, if this happens one more time, I want to know. Because I'm driving up to that school, I'm going into his office and saying, listen, you cannot sit here and give this whole bullying thing and all these other things and rattle all this stuff off. And then when someone comes into your office and says, stop being a baby, because I told my wife, I said, next time I'm just going to tell my son, not a girl, of course, but if it was a guy, just crack him then. And, because, they say one thing and they do something else. And the way he said it just irritated the crap out of me. I thought, dude, really? You sit here every year, you make these kids go through multiple things on bullying. Come talk to your counselor. Now, my wife's like, well, it was towards the end of the year. He probably didn't want to deal with it. I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They say it. They preach it nonstop. They go to get a problem corrected because nobody wants to hit a girl, and then these kids want to hit a girl. And they just go, whatever. Stop being babies. And I'm like, well, if somebody approaches my son and does something ignorant and he tags him, a guy, of course, not a girl, but he punches him in the face or whatever he does, he's not getting in trouble with me. And I said, I will be right back up at that school and telling that counselor, this is what you get when you preach these things and then you don't even take your own advice. This is what happens. My son is not going to be in trouble with me. I don't care what you think, but you had every chance to stop it. You chose not to. You called somebody a baby, so he corrected the issue. And that's on you. But there's so many things. Again, the government wants to point at guns and everything else, and there's so many variables. There's so many other circumstances that lead to this type of behavior. And, of course, government and people in the schools, they don't want to address it. It's like, I don't understand. It's almost like they try to cover it up. Like, what are you guys covering up? What are you guys so afraid of? Why are you so afraid of doing what will actually work? You're going through bullying campaigns. Clearly, that's not helping. Clearly, that's not working. The conversation has to switch to something that follows the line of logic and common sense and says, we have to do something meaningful, which government can't do, of course, and schools get a lot of government money, so you can't expect a lot of schools to do meaningful things. And again, this is another prime example of maybe, we had it with COVID, and now maybe this leads more people to homeschool their kids. And they, at least if the kids at home or with a small group of kids in someone's house homeschooling, the chances of them being involved in a school shooting are pretty much nil. So not only your kids are learning more, they're learning better, they're also staying safer.
Yeah, this is part of why I'm wanting to stop federal overreach. They're not in my district, but I applaud Camdenton. They turned down, I think, $1 million or more for their school when the state was giving out federal money. Camdenton said, no, we've had enough of it. We don't like what strings are probably going to be attached. We're good. We're not going to take any more of that Fed money.
Wow. That's very unusual for a school not to take money. So good for that school district. Honestly, good for that school district, because they most time you dangle money in front, dangle that carrot, boy, they're launching for that money. They're not going to pass that up. They're like, oh, this, because again, with federal money, they always make it sound like it's just this free money they're handing out, and that money is never free. There's always strings attached to federal funding.
Yep.
You just have to take the time to read the fine print and see what else is tied up in that money, things that you are required to do.
There's strings attached with any money that we give out, federal, state, whatever. At the end of the day, it doesn't take much for them to turn around and say, hey, we want you to do this thing, and the school or the county to say, I don't think so. And then all you got to do is say, oh, well, you know that money that we give you? You're not going to get any more of that. We're going to cut that off now. Or you can do what we said.
Yeah, LaTanya makes a good point, too. She says most of our, we got a lot of principals get in trouble for sexual misconduct with kids. Instead of them going to jail, they transfer them to other districts. They think we can't tell. Yeah, that's another problem. I mean, we're talking about gun violence in schools, but there are many, many other ways to harm a child, mentally, physically, whatever. And what are they doing in those situations? It's a cover-up. Look what happened out there. Was that in West Virginia or wherever, where the kid said he was trans and he sexually assaulted 2 different girls, and the school didn't want to do anything about it because of this agenda that they have now?
Well,
That's perfectly fine because that has to do with transgender. We don't have to stop that. But if you own a gun, boy, we can't have you owning a gun now. There's so many other ways to harm a kid.
I hope this doesn't cause. I doubt anyone here is going to care. South Park made a very good point. They did a wonderful video. Anyone who knows it, Kyle's younger brother, Ike, kindergartner, is in a relationship with his teacher. And, Kyle is, hey, this isn't okay. He's a kid. She's his teacher. She's an adult. That's no bueno. Goes to talk to the cops and says, my brother's in a relationship with this female teacher who all the adults think is hot. And everyone's response is just, nice. It happens all the time. You see this response from people that just because it was a boy in a relationship with a female teacher, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's perfectly valid. It's perfectly fine. Whatever. I wanted that at that age. He's going to be fine. It's just a boy. No problem. Now flip that around. Girl with a male teacher. All of a sudden, it's the exact opposite story.
Yeah. Yeah. So many issues in these schools. And a lot of times they don't get discussed until, one of these big stories comes up. And then they kind of go, they get swept under the rug, or they're not thought of because it's not the hot topic of the day. But it certainly is very backwards in our thinking, how for one sex it's one way and one sex it's another way, which, it could be from these movements that we have now with feminism and everything else. That could be a part of it. I mean, the waters are so muddied right now, and everything's so backwards. Up is down, down is up, left is right, right is left. And, as my friend Sam said, if the government tells you it's raining and you walk outside, it's probably a bird peeing in your hand. So, the lies just continue. But I don't know. I started thinking about this whole thing in Texas and had you on, and you're running for office. So I kind of wanted your thoughts on.
Yeah, no problem. I would say my biggest thought is we need to look at other options for schooling besides government. Whether that be co-ops, hiring retired teachers, your churches grouping together and being willing to start it, you homeschooling, whatever it takes. We need to look at other options. On top of that, I'm a bigger fan of not relying on government for protection in any way, shape, or form. It's a lot easier if your response time is 30 seconds compared to if your response time is 10 minutes. Or if you get a Coward of Broward situation.
Well, yeah, and then apparently the one in Texas, I mean, the cop stood outside while this guy's... And that's the other thing. I do believe that there have been court cases that said that the cops do not have to protect you. They do not have to go in there and do that. So keep that in mind, folks. I'm just saying, if the cops aren't, obligated to protect you, as it says on the outside, it says to serve and protect. If they don't have to do it, then what's the point? I mean, what is the point? And the response time argument is always a good argument when we're talking about, when they talk about disarming the population, depending on where you live, if you live in a big city, response time may be minutes. You don't have minutes. You have seconds. And you live in a town like I do, a little less than 2,000 people. If they're on one end of town, they got to get all the way to me. It may be too late. So
Yeah.
it's.
I mean, my town is blessed. Clarksburg's not. Clarksburg's going to be about 20 minutes.
Oh boy.
California's blessed. It'll probably be a minute, 2 minutes. And I firmly believe our local cops would do what they would feel their duty is too. But I don't want that to ever have to be the option.
Yeah, you'd rather have people be able to defend themselves.
Exactly. I would rather have our kids safe and protected than to have to rely on a 2-minute even response time. 2 minutes is amazing. How much damage could already be done?
Yeah,
and yeah.
The other thing is they have these, they've made all these nifty things for like doors for classrooms that when they shut them and then somebody can't get in, and that's all great and fine. But I'd still rather have somebody there that could, for the people caught in the hallways and everything else, I'd rather still have somebody there that could possibly put down the instigator instead of, terrifying everybody, locking them in rooms, and whoever is not in a lockable room is just screwed. I would rather have people armed and able to respond to the threat. But I mean, again, the locks are great. The way to bar a door so an active shooter can't get in the room, that's all fine and dandy. But I still think you need somebody there able to maybe neutralize the threat, rather than hoping the cops decide to come into the school, A, or B, that he's able to walk around and still take some people out.
So, I had a teacher. He's no longer around, so I think it's safe to tell. He said, look, if it ever happens, you guys are going to that corner, shove the desk up against the door. When locking the door, I've got this to lock the door. Somewhere around here, I might have a little friend who's going to come in handy if somebody decides to show up.
Yeah.
And he left it at that. Did not tell anyone where anything was. Just made it clear he had a plan.
Yeah, and that's, some teachers say that, well, I don't want to be in charge of protecting students. That's fine. I don't believe that you should make them do it, but I do believe that almost about any school, there would be teachers willing to take up that mantle to say, yes, I will carry, no one will know. And if an active if a shooter does come in, I am willing to defend these kids. Now, again, that's going to be different in every state. And of course, you get into certain states like California. Well, you're definitely not going to be having a gun in any school in California. But there are people willing to go above and beyond because they love their profession. They love the kids that they teach. They care deeply for them, and they don't want to see harm come to them. And most of them are going to be willing to say, yes, I will carry, I will conceal, whatever. And I will do what I can to neutralize the threat if that situation occurs. And that's, even though you can't publicize it, those are people that need to be praised.
Yeah.
So, well, okay, I think we spent dang, we're on 43 minutes. We've been rattling the saber on the whole gun issue. Okay, so I mean, while we're at it, is anything else? Is there something that you'd really want to talk about, Casey? Something that you really, okay, well, actually, let's do this. You're running for campaign for District 58.
Yes, sir.
Now, I want you to tell people directly. you have something coming up here soon, some kind of campaign thing you have coming up soon that I know
So,
you would like people to get involved in.
since we talked about that, I actually now have 3 of them.
Okay, there we go.
All right, so June 18th here in outskirts of California, Missouri, Mid Missouri Archery and Shooting. We're planning on doing what's called gun poker. It's going to be, I think, $20 for 5 shots, and you try to make your best poker hand with your 5 shots, and after that, it'll be $5 an extra shot if you want to take extra shots at it. And the winner's going to get a 50-50 pot, and the rest of that's going to go towards the campaign.
Okay, now, so where's that at again?
It's at Mid Missouri Archery and Shooting Supplies on Old 50, on the outskirts of California, Missouri.
Okay, so is this firearms or what are we talking about here?
We're talking. My plan right now is pistol. He has pistols there. He'll let you use probably. Just gotta talk to him. Sounds like he's okay with it. I'll just probably end up cleaning them.
And what time?
Or-
What time is this?
My plan right now is 11 to probably about 3. And at 11 to noon, I'm planning on serving lunch. Planning on doing hot dogs or hamburgers and chips and a drink. $5 a plate. Come on out, eat it up, shoot, have a little bit of fun shooting. And just check out his range and his shop. He's been a big supporter since I started running. Steve Craters is the owner's name. He's an awesome guy. The shop's awesome. And they were willing to let me do this out there. So I want to give all the support to him I can as well.
Dude, I might be. That's a Saturday. I might be there for that one, bro. To be able to shoot at poker cards and try to make a great. Oh my God, that sounds amazing. That's a good idea, dude. I wish I'd have thought of that. I may have to show up for that one. That sounds freaking awesome.
And then the week after that, starting in Versailles, I think I'm going to meet at the Pioneer Restaurant, starting at 10 a.m. We're going to be doing what's called a Super Saturday, which is me. I'm going to try and gather up as many people as I can to go door knocking, and we're going to knock out as much of Morgan County as we can. I've already knocked out a good portion of it. I've hit about 1,500 to 1,600 doors so far. Total, but I got to get more. And so June 25th, 10 a.m. to probably about 8 p.m. If you can't be there the whole time, just show up for whatever time you can. Send the campaign a message on Facebook or from my website. Give me your shirt size if you know you're coming, and I'll be happy to make sure you got a shirt. And that's going to be June 25th, 10 a.m. at the Pioneer Restaurant in Versailles.
Okay.
And then July 9th, just a regular target shoot. It's going to be another 50-50 pot. Take 5 shots. Best grouping of 3 wins. That's going to be rifle. And that's at Ozark Outfitters on the outskirts of Versailles. And it's going to be, again, $20, 5 shots. And best shot wins half the pot. And the other, and the second place gets a box of ammo.
2 different shoots. That sounds beauty. Man, that's 2 different events I might have to get to. The poker shoot just is like really like working on me. Like 18th, I know I've already decided I wasn't going to go into work that day and do any overtime. I had plans to go fishing, but if I get to go shoot at playing cards instead.
Hey, he's got a pond out there. I'm sure he'd let you fish it too if you ask him.
Kill 2 birds with 1 stone, shooting and fishing in the same day. Are you freaking kidding me right now, Casey? You're knocking it out of the park, bro.
I cannot make that offer open to everyone. That's Steve's call, but
Right.
he does have a farm.
Oh, that sounds awesome, bro. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely look into seeing if I can be there on the 18th and do that poker shoot. I might see if my wife wants to come with me too, because that sounds awesome. I would love to do that because she just got a new firearm, and we're gonna be shooting it next weekend for the first time when some friends from Minnesota come down. We're gonna go spend a day at the range, launching lead and taking out our frustrations. So. If it's a
Yeah.
really accurate pistol, I mean, like, come on, honey, let's go drop $20 and shoot at poker cards.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and both gun groups are great guys, and they're able to get behind that idea that I've been telling everybody. I want to get the government out of your wallet. I want to get them out of your medicine cabinet, and I want to get them out of your gun cabinet.
Amen, brother. Okay, so trying to think. Anything else? I mean, because I got all the time you want. I just at 56 minutes, I got to cut it off for KEYK, and then I can go on. Any other topic you want to discuss, bro?
I don't have a lot to discuss. I probably need to wrap it up here fairly shortly.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is I'd love to have any help I can get. I want to get to the legislature and I want to fight for liberty. Missouri, we should be a free state. I know people give Texas and Florida all this credit for being free. One thing I always found that is Texas had to make a law to allow you to carry swords. That I know of, Missouri's never banned you from open carrying a sword. So, I'm just saying we've probably been a freer state for longer. And we need to keep it that way.
Oh, Latanya asked, I already know your thoughts, but maybe some of these fine folks haven't heard you. Real quick, your thoughts on recreational marijuana legalization. Excuse me. What's your thoughts?
I support it because why are we throwing people in jail over a plant? That makes no sense to me. If you're going to put it in your own body, put it in your own body. I can see not wanting the smell everywhere in public, but hey, guess what? Freedom doesn't always smell the greatest.
Put that on a campaign slogan. Freedom doesn't always smell great. See?
But at the end of the day, it's a plant. If it's doing any harm, it's doing it to you. And, you should be allowed to do that.
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
And even if, for some reason, even if people don't support recreational, they should realize it's coming. It's going to happen in the state, and they may as well get ahead of it and put it in statute rather than the Constitution.
Yep. And Latanya also asked, because I know already, what are your thoughts on Dean Plocker?
So, I am not the biggest fan right now, especially of the fact that there were so many bills that were important to Missourians that didn't get taken up because he held them back. At the end of the day, there were a lot of bills that should have been heard. Self-defense, recreational marijuana, getting rid of grocery sales tax, vaccine freedom. These things all should have gotten a hearing, and they didn't because they got held up in the bureaucracy that he gets to be a part of. And I think that's ridiculous. So sum up, I think that he blocked a lot of good bills, and we shouldn't stand by that. We should be letting these things come forward. I know a lot of the reason people don't like to do that, especially with Republican bills. I've heard from various people is they're worried they won't get the votes. But if they won't get the votes, so what? That let the legislature decide that.
Right. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. Mr. Casey Pemberton running for District 58 in Missouri State House of Representatives. Real quick, Casey, do you have a website you could give out to that way?
Casey.gop.
Casey.gop. Okay.
Or I have a Facebook at Casey Pemberton for House District 58.
All right, I will make sure I get all these things, the dates for the different campaign things, your websites, everything. I will get those in the description of this video. So once again, thanks to everybody for joining me for another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. To all of you who took part in the live stream tonight, had a good group, lots of comments. Appreciate you all. Appreciate all of you who download. But again, and to those of you in KEYK land, KEYK land, you can email me or anybody who's listening actually at mlreport@protonmail.com. That is mlreport@protonmail.com. Really love to hear from some of my listeners. But anyway, that will do it for this evening and this week, and we'll see y'all next week, folks. Take care. All right, Casey.
All right.
Thanks for coming on with me. I'm sorry that I didn't